Welcome to our short lunchbox webinar on the 2023 State of the World Fathers Report, being released this week in Australia, with specific reference to trends happening for dads here in Oz. Joining us today is the CEO of the Fathering Project in Australia, Káti Gapaillard. From the US is the CEO of Equimondo, Gary Barker, and from Telethon Kids Research, Vincent Mancini. Welcome to everyone. So let's dive into this report to find out what the research is telling us. What is the state of fathering? What do we need to be concerned about? And what needs to change? So let's start with the global review. Why is this report so important? So please welcome Gary Barker, the CEO of Equimondo, who are the lead global organization on this project, and they're based in Washington, DC. Gary, good morning to you and a big welcome. Let's hear a little bit about Equimondo, how this report started and why it's so important.
Thanks, Liz, and congratulations on this event and your work on this topic. We're thrilled to be part of it. Equimondo works internationally on engaging men and boys for gender equality, with the belief that gender equality needs men and men need gender equality. Among the areas we work, one, how do we start conversations with boys and young men at earlier ages about healthy masculinities? Two, how do we engage men in preventing violence, both against women, but also violence between men? And third, and the topic of this report and this conversation today is around care and care equality. How do we get men to center care in our lives as something we do at home, as something we do for others, something we do for ourselves, something we do for the world? We started together with partners in 2011, the Global Men Care Campaign, and that's now active with partners like yourselves in something like 60 countries, with this conversation around how do we support men in the structural changes we need, the policy changes we need, the narrative shift we need, the individual changes we need to achieve both full equity in care, but also for men to center care in our lives. We realized as we started the campaign back in 2011, there was no global platform. Lots of folks talking about this issue, but in terms of kind of a global advocacy instrument and a place where conversations were had with international policymakers, UN, funders, the multilateral banks, governments, there really wasn't. And so engaging in conversation with lots of partners, we said, in addition to Men Care, we need something like a global snapshot of where we are to engage men and boys in care and care equality. So we started 2015, the first ever State of the World's Fathers Report. This is now number 5. This time we've got 17 countries of new data, including Australia, asking the question, where are we and where do we need to go in terms of engaging men as full allies? What are we seeing as headlines and where do we take that information? One, men are doing more than they have before. That's a good thing. COVID was a bit of a wake-up call, a readjustment. We need to build on that. Men are still not doing our share anywhere in the world, although some of us may be doing it at home. But how do we get men to take it on? Men want to, they get happiness out of it. And that's another key point we see coming out this year. Men who say they can do the amount of care work they want to report that they're happier in life, women too. We also know that when men take care of their own emotional lives, we see that they're far more likely to be invested in care. Third key point that we think is key coming out of this time is we asked men about their involvement as activists, as advocates. How much do they care about care in the public space? Will they vote for it? Will they march for it? And we found that in almost all the countries we looked at, men want to center it, they want to do it, they want to talk about it as much as women. I think politicians could pay attention to that in terms of what it says about how men will vote for this. So what do we do with this? One, it's clear to us that, individual men we can step up and do our share, and many men are, perhaps in numbers more so than any moment since the Industrial Revolution. But that said, we've got to change the structures around men. The workplace, we know how much workplace matters in terms of supporting men to take the leave and do the care that we need to do outside of our paid work activities. We need the policies in place, parental leave equally shared and much more, the other kinds of supports that we need at the household level. We need to start young, engaging boys. We need to engage those who write the stories that we consume and watch, television, streaming, that the narratives about involved fatherhood are out there for all of us to see. I will end there. Thrilled to hear more about the Australian findings in the report. And again, congratulations for this. We're thrilled to be partners in how do we make this a reality of men increasingly centering care in our lives.
Many thanks, Gary, for sharing this global perspective. Now I'd like to welcome the CEO of the Fathering Project, Káti Gapaillard, to share with us some of the key top-line results of this report, focusing on Australian fathers and father figures, and the very interesting findings from this report that give us a snapshot of fathering in Australia in 2023.
Thank you, Liz. And thank you, Gary. The report's findings really provide a picture of caregiving and parental leave in Australia, specifically related to men. It sheds a revealing light on modern fatherhood, specifically addressing the concerning trend of low parental leave uptake among Aussie fathers. According to the report, a remarkable 87% of Aussie dads acknowledge equal responsibility for caregiving at home with their partners. However, we can see a troubling reality emerging as well from this report. Australian men's utilisation of parental leave ranks among the lowest in the industrial world, as highlighted by the Grattan Institute in 2022. The critical impact of the report's findings on men's decisions regarding parental leave was of particular interest to us. We found that 85% of Aussie dads who didn't access their parental leave did so because they felt a responsibility to continue working. This is related to societal pressures and gender stereotypes of men as breadwinners and fathers having greater earning capacity in their paid work. And the report highlights the financial and social pressures fathers face in prioritising work over caregiving responsibilities. In contrast, mothers showed greater willingness to change jobs to secure longer care leave, with 50% echoing this sentiment in the survey. So I'd like to summarise the 4 key takeaways, and they are: 1, fathers are spending more time on caregiving than ever before, but mothers are still doing more. 2, fathers want to use parental leave and believe being able to take more leave would benefit them and their families, but they're not taking it. Men account for only 13% of all paid parental leave taken in 2021-22. 3, over 80% of fathers identified the difficulties of balancing work and family posed the biggest challenge they faced as parents. And 4th and last, almost 80% of surveyed fathers reported they had never received any formal support for their parenting. So it's clear there is an urgent need for us to remove systemic barriers and allow men to take that parental leave so they can participate more equally and with less stress in the lives of their children. And this has multiple benefits. We know from research that fathers' involvement in caregiving helps improve children's cognitive, emotional, and social development, and possibly even physical health. Caregiving helps men too. Men who are involved in their children's lives tend to live longer, are more likely to take care of their health, and are less likely to engage in risky behaviours like smoking, drinking, and violence. And of course, women benefit too, as they have more opportunities to work, build their career, and be more financially secure. This really is a win for all. And as we say, gender equality at work starts with gender equality at home.
Wow, that was an amazing wrap up. Thank you so much. And I think very interesting to see those trends and statistics that are emerging around men taking parental leave, and, you know, the encouragement for them to take more, but understanding that there are still some internal systems and policies that might need to be put in place to encourage that, and also to understand the welfare and benefit that gives the child and the family. So thank you so much for sharing those top line reports. And I think it's really interesting now to dive further into the data. And we welcome the lead researcher, Dr. Vincent Mancini. He is the Fathering Project's Senior Research Fellow at the Telethon Kids Institute in WA. And we're really keen for you to shed some further light on what this research is telling us about the state of fathering in Australia in 2023, particularly around parental leave and those key obstacles. So very big welcome to you too, Vincent.
Thank you very much, Liz. It's great to be here. So just following on from what Káti has mentioned about the report, I suppose it's really important from the top to mention that in my capacity as a child health researcher, one of the things that I keep seeing and keep learning in the literature is that fathers really do have an important impact on the lives of their children. And this impact is probably bigger than we initially thought, and it also starts earlier than we initially thought. So at the moment, there's a real focus on the role that dads play in the early years and how that behavior and that relationship that's formed in the early years really shapes the health and well-being trajectory of a child throughout their life into adulthood and long after dads are gone as well. When we look at the State of the World's Fathers report, what we see here is that in Australia, somewhat similarly to other developed industrialized nations, is that the fathers in this study really express their willingness and a desire to contribute more to caregiving, but also experienced facing a number of barriers. So these barriers include things like gender stereotypes that prevent them from maybe being as involved or as affectionate or as nurturing as they would like to be. But also financial constraints as well. So having to continue to engage in paid employment to support the family, which takes away from their ability to maybe spend as much time with their kids as they'd like. Some of the key figures, Káti had mentioned earlier on that close to 90% of Australian fathers recognise that they have an equal responsibility for caring for their children. What's also probably really important to add to that is about 4 out of 5 of the fathers who took part in this study actually described that caring for their children was one of the most enjoyable aspects of their life. So this is something that we already see that dads in Australia are really finding as a rewarding, also challenging, but very rewarding experience as well. With regard to your comment on parental leave, Liz, what we found was that approximately 86% of the fathers and approximately 74% of the mothers who took part in this study agreed that longer paid care leave would benefit both their partner and their children. When we asked the fathers what their biggest difficulties were in managing life as a dad in Australia in 2023, perhaps unsurprisingly, the biggest challenge that these dads faced was managing the responsibilities of work and family. So that juggling act that we see so many men and families have to walk as they're navigating paid employment, child rearing, and all those other responsibilities in life. And probably the last statistic that I can maybe draw your attention to is that 1 in 4 fathers reported that they hadn't actually received much support in their parenting role. They didn't feel like they had enough support. And in addition to that, approximately 4 out of every 5 fathers in the study had actually never received any formal support for parenting. So whilst a lot of fathers may report that they feel like maybe their partner is able to help them, or maybe their parents, grandparents of the children are able to help, the ability to actually access formal support seems to be a bit of a barrier for fathers there, despite us knowing that there are supports in place that are available.
Thank you so much for sharing the information, Vincent. And I think, hearing from both you and hearing from Káti, it really is very insightful to see the impact that working fathers are finding in trying to navigate parental leave, trying to navigate their role maybe as a first-time father, and how to step into that, needing more support, more information, more knowledge, and also seeing in the data the great outcomes that can bring to all of the family and to the child. So, thank you so much for highlighting those points. And I think we're going to come back to Káti now, because this has been a short, what we would call a lunchbox webinar. So it's a short one, but a really important one to see what the state of the Australian Fathering Report is in 2023. And I look forward to hearing your summation. And back to you, Káti.
Thank you very much, Liz, and thank you, Vincent. Effectively, out of this report, we are calling on the corporate sector to heighten efforts in addressing the gender pay gaps and encouraging workplaces to create policies that promote gender equality. So this would include offering parental leave and flexible working arrangements for both men and women, which can encourage men to take on a more active role in caregiving and challenge those traditional gender roles. Through our annual Fathering Awards, a dedicated category for Best Workplace for Fathers has been established specifically to showcase organizations that foster this flexibility, respect, and value for parental leave. This initiative aims to reduce anxiety and stress around job security or promotions when fathers do take leave. Past recipients, including KPMG and Hollard Insurance, exemplify forward-thinking fathering policies that break down these barriers, and they benefit families and contribute to the overall development of children and positive family relationships. This cannot be overstated. Policies and programs aimed at supporting positive fathering offer a significant opportunity, and this promotes the best interests of Australian children, yet they continue to remain underutilised. The current report, along with our research programs, really provide insights into the experience of Australian fathers in 2023, marking that crucial first step in building the capacity of fathers to support their children reach their fullest potential. I'd really like to thank Gary, Vincent, and you, Liz, for bringing this to light and allowing us to share it with the Australian public. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Káti. And I want to say thank you so much for Gary getting up so early in his morning. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Káti, for sharing this very, very valuable report. And I think for those that are listening on this lunchbox webinar or breakfast webinar, whenever you are listening to it, I think it's important to know also, if you want to read the report on the state of the world's fathers, you can go to the fatheringproject.org, where you can actually find a copy of the report. If you're inquiring if you'd like to join a dad's group, you can also find the closest one to you by going to the fatheringproject.org website and looking up dad's groups, and you can find them in your area. I think what you said, Vincent, it was very interesting that many dads find it hard to find material, or they've never really had support on that parenting role. So encouraging those that haven't already visited the Fathering channel on the Fathering Project, you'll see that there's a wide range of subject matter there on topics from regular podcasts to videos and fathering tips. So I think let's wrap up this short lunchbox webinar. Thanks all for joining us. Thanks again to our presenters, and enjoy the rest of your day, night, and don't forget to check out the State of the World's Fathers, the Australian report, out this week at thefatheringproject.org. Thank you all, and have a good afternoon.